Kia, Katie Dishinekashon. Hello, my name is Katie. Today I would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations on which I am learning, organizing, and working today. I would like to personally acknowledge my positionality as a mixed settler and Métis woman whose families are uninvited guests on these traditional lands. As a visitor on this land, I have an important responsibility to acknowledge the traditional caretakers of this land and give my deepest gratitude that myself and my family can exist here. I believe it's important to acknowledge whose traditional land we are on because growing up here in BC, I've never heard the traditional names of the territories spoken out loud, discussed, or brought up in the classroom. Indigenous peoples were talked about in the past tense, and all the struggles they faced were in the past tense as well. It is easier to deny Indigenous peoples their rights if we historicize their struggles and simply pretend they do not exist in current times. As a proud Indigenous woman and a student working to end the colonial system through my own decolonized education, I would like to take this opportunity to commit myself to the struggle against the systems of oppression that have dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their lands and denied them their rights to self-determination. I encourage all of you watching to do the same and learn more about the traditional caretakers of the land you are situated on today. Thank you, and Marseille, all my relations.
Hi, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Quinn, and I'm the lead of Indigenous Initiatives and Training at the Gord Downie and Cheney Wenjack Fund. Inspired by Cheney's story and Gord's call to build a better Canada, we aim to build cultural understanding and create a path towards reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. It's great to be here today for a special DWF Live with executive producer and elder Squil-le-he-le, Raynell Morris, and co-creator Sarah Sharkey Pearce to speak about their documentary, Resident Orca.
Squil-le-he-le, Senesnet, Raynell Morris, Senesnet, Chuck-le-me-son. Good morning, my friends and relatives. Haishka, for having this space and time to share this important information. My traditional name is Squil-le-he-le. My English name is Raynell Morris. I am a matriarch and elder from the Lummi Nation.
My name is Sarah Sharkey Pearce. I'm a filmmaker, and I worked with Squil-le-he-le to make this film.
This is the exact capture location. Babies were being pushed away from their mothers, lassoed, netted.
You talk about pain, you should hear 30 or 40 whales screaming.
Their whole goal was to generate revenue. They gave her a show name. They called her Lolita. She's hurting and she's not getting the care she needs.
She's all alone.
They would make the decision just not to feed her anymore.
The first time I was in the water with her, you can't see past her face. It's just huge. How can this whale be in this small tank? This is ridiculous. We gotta get down there.
We'll bring you home.
She's more than just a captive whale. She is our family.
There's a Native American tribe now claiming ancestral rights to this animal, and they wanted this animal back in her native waters where she belonged. That's a hell of a story. No one's ever told this story.
She's already been there 52 years.
Our great-grandparents, when they got taken off to boarding school, the savage was taken out of them. She went off to boarding school, and she's still there.
It's not hard to capture whales. What I think we've learned over time is how hard it is to put one back.
She's a corporate asset. We don't own her.
They never granted me permission on park grounds.
She's there. You can't hide a whale.
We have caused as human beings so much destruction, but there is hope.
How was she doing today?
Not great.
Thank you both for being here today. We were so moved through Resident Orca and have many questions for you about the journey and struggle to bring Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut home. So let's jump right in. Could you share how you became connected to Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut and why it was important for you to tell this story?
Well, I was brought into the campaign to bring Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut home through our late chief Salik, who is Lakhtamish here at the Lummi Nation. He had heard about her, and it was brought to our tribal council. And at that time, I was the director of the Sovereignty Treaty Protection Office for the Lummi Nation. So it came to my department, and we did the research and talked with the chief and brought it to our tribal council. And they said, we need to bring her home. We agree with the late Chief Salik, and she's our family. We need to bring her home. So that started my involvement to do the campaign, to lead it, to do the strategies. And through the process, really our hearts were connected and we became one.
I became connected to the Southern residents through research into a scientist in Canada who was doing a mission to tag and track the Southern residents to understand sort of north of the border, what was leading to the demise of the population. And I was working with filmmaker Simon Schneider, and we realized that a lot of the answers were already known, that more research wasn't really necessary, and there were many people in the scientific community and outside the scientific community that really understood sort of what was happening. Through that research, we met Linda Mapes at the Seattle Times, who had a special relationship with the late Chief Salik from Lummi Nation, and we met Squil-le-he-le Raynell Morris and started to follow a very mixed group of people who were attempting to bring Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut home or Lolita home from Miami Seaquarium. And we understood that sharing that story or starting to track that story, would take some time and would lead us somewhere we went unknown. It was a follow doc.
Thank you so much for sharing. In the film, we hear Orca referred publicly as Lolita and Tokite, but her indigenous name, Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut. Can you share the meaning of her indigenous name and why her traditional name is so important?
Yes, in Lakhtamish culture, your family and our peoples will give traditional names when the time is right. And when we were talking with the late Chief Salik, we realized the southern resident killer whales had not been given a traditional name. And in turn, Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut, Tokite Lolita, had not been given a family name. So Salik is the one that said it should be from the village site where she was captured. So Sk'aliCh'elh is the name of our ancient village site, also known in the English way as Pen Cove. And Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut is the female version of Sk'aliCh'elh. So we wanted to give her an identity to connect her to her culture, to connect her to her family, connect her family to our family. And that was our cultural way of doing that.
That's really beautiful. Moving on, your friend and executive producer, Thomas, speaks about the similarities between Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's reality of being taken from her family and the history of colonial policies such as boarding schools and in Canada known as residential schools. Can you expand on this truth that Thomas outlined here?
Yes, and actually that came many years before, when our late Chief Salik was telling our community and our people about that connection and why the importance to bring her home was connected to what the churches and the governments had done to our Indian children with the Indian resident boarding schools. By taking her, he said, it's just like the Indian children. They took her, stripped her of her family, her home, her language, her people, her culture. And he said, that's what we need to do to begin to heal, is when that strand of life is broken, when they stole her, when we bring her back, that will heal that strand. And that became, a real important connection for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to understand that cosmology, that connectedness of who she is and who we are.
So there were many different partners you worked with for Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's return. And at one point in the film Squil-le-he-le, you say, you refer to an interaction and you say, I'm not at the table today, but I'm in the room. So with that, I just want to know how you navigated staying true to yourself, representing your community while working with different allies, authorities, and non-supporters as well.
It was a spiritual journey as well as a campaign and strategic journey. Through this, I began to pray very consistently, and my place of prayer is Wichiagan. It's an ancient village site. And I asked for guidance from our late chief Salik and from ancestors to guide me spiritually through this, as this isn't the first time in history that to do something to help our people, that we had to have partners that were non-Indigenous, non-tribal, and very pointed, in particular, very wealthy white men. And so I needed a lot of guidance and prayer to navigate through that. And what was told to me over and over is it's not about me, my ego, or me being in the front. It's about what can we do that's best for Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut. What can we do to bring her home? And we didn't have the financial resources and all of the political clout. So I was told it's necessary, yet again, to make these partnerships, even though it was not comfortable, because once we brought Charles Van Eyck from the Whale Sanctuary Project, and in particular Pritam Singh, to the table, they wanted to be in the front. So, they point blank said, we've got this. This is really difficult, hard work. We have the resources. We have the political knowledge. We'll take it from here. And I was told that that's what's best for her. You need to follow suit, but still stand your ground and still represent her. And that's what I tried to navigate through the entire campaign and journey for her. Was also that journey for me.
I think you did a flawless job at that also. Sharkey, how did you prioritize Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's perspectives in the film as a non-Indigenous filmmaker? And what can others do to decolonize filmmaking?
It's a very big question. I think one of the things that happened is we, as a faithful witness to something unfolding, I started to understand the power dynamics at play. And I was wanting very much to witness Squil-le-he-le's journey in attempting to bring her relative home. And in doing so, Squil-le-he-le and I formed a bond, a kinship of sorts. And I think there's something about that very, it's an intimate relationship really, that allowed us to go all the way through to make the work. And so I think that's sort of a personal answer, but in terms of decolonizing our practice as filmmakers, documentary comes out of a very sort of anthropological place, a place of sort of studying the other, looking at the other as somehow separate from us. And I think Squil-le-he-le said it very well. When you start to understand yourself as part of a cosmology, as part of the world, as connected, as if I understand that something I do impacts another person, I start to decolonize myself. And I think we're in an age of decolonization. I think our documentary practices need to be interrogated, our whitenesses, our alliances, our the power structures that we attach ourselves to. And I think in partnership with Squil-le-he-le, she had the role of executive producer on the film. She watched cuts. We held hands as we walked through this pretty wild real life experience. And I would say that's how you decolonize your practice, is you give up power for the sake of truth.
That's so awesome. What do you hope to see done for the current population of resident orcas and the protection of ecosystems and Indigenous ways of knowing?
There's a lot that needs to be done. I made a sacred obligation to Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut when she passed that I wasn't able to bring her home, but her mother and her family are still here, still suffering, still starving, that I promised that I would continue to work for her family, which I have. And there's a lot that we can do. This administration in the United States is trying to strip all of the animal welfare protections that have been in place for a long time. So we're asking our citizens here in the United States to advocate to keep those laws and regulations of protections whole. And in turn, we're also advocating for our U.S. Navy not to do ballistic testing in our Skully-Chuck. The family of Squil-le-he-le orcas are acoustic beings. So when there's, these magnitudes of blasts, it interferes with their ability to hunt, to communicate, to socialize. So noise pollution, water pollution, and they are starving, so it's getting salmon back to them. They're very specific in their diet of Chinook salmon. The biggest source that we have here in the Skully-Chuck that feeds them is the Snake River. There are 4 dams on the lower Snake River that need to be breached to bring that salmon back. We know from dam breaching on the Elwha, 14 years later, salmon harvest has returned. We know from the Klamath River, that's the largest dam removal, that salmon came back within a week. There's still more work to be done on the Klamath. There's 2 toxic dams upriver, but we know it can work. So we know by doing this with the Snake River, the salmon are like we are. We know where our home is. The sacred cedar brings us back home. The sacred cedar on the Snake River will bring the salmon back. So there's some very specific ways that we can continue to work to save her family.
Squil-le-he-le, what's the organization that you've formed? Who are you partnering with right now?
Oh, Haishka for that, Sharkey. We have a Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut legacy.org website that there's actions you can take a look at, what laws are being threatened and how can you weigh in and who do you weigh into, and the same with the Navy. And you can keep track also on screenings for resident orca. And also now The Snake and the Whale is an additional documentary that is on that website. And I'm hoping that we can show the QR code so the viewers and folks can follow us on that website.
We'll make sure to share that and circulate it. And, I think there's so much more to be done, but there's also hope to be had. And that's what I kind of take away from your answer. Though Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut passed away to the spirit world before she could physically return to the Salish Sea, you were able to bring her remains to the Lakhtamish place of creation. What did this homecoming mean to you?
It was continuing and following out our promise to her family, to bring her home. It's what we do for our people. It doesn't matter where you pass. When you're called home, it's important that your remains are brought back to your people. And for her, it's where she was born. It's her place of creation, was the Skully-Chuck. And so working with Eduardo Elbor, the owner of the Dolphin Company, we were able to coordinate the transport in a private jet from a crematory in Georgia right back home to Lummi Nation, and then from a funeral home at Lummi here, brought her by a law enforcement vessel out to our place of creation. We did ceremony out there. We spread 300 plus pounds of her ashes. We gave live salmon and prayer to her people, to ancestors, and made her one so she could walk as whole with our ancestors. So the work was important to finish for her.
Was there anything that you weren't able to include in the final film that you'd like audiences to know?
There is one thing that I'm not sure if I emphasized it enough. And, Sharkey talked about the biology and the science, in the beginning. That was a real barrier in the beginning of the campaign, is the journalists and the newspapers and the newscasters wanted to focus on the science and the biology of it, whereas our approach was through the culture and the spirit. And it took years for the culture and the spirit to be even mentioned, in articles, in news broadcasts about her. Those were always cut out for years in the beginning, and then it started to shift. And we believe that it is her culture and her beliefs and our beliefs in the spirit that made the change and made the movement, and that just was so discounted in the beginning, like I said, for years. And so part of what isn't shown in the documentary is about 7 ceremonies that were done for her to help her spirit heal. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know her family. She didn't know her culture. And so by going and doing those private ceremonies, and rightly so, it couldn't be shown in the documentary because the filmmakers weren't allowed in. But because I was on the board of Friends of Toki, they allowed me to go in and do those spiritual ceremonies for her. And that's what taught her who she is, where she's from. That taught her trainers. It taught Pritam, Eduardo, and Charles what her culture is, who her people are. I would bring gifts every ceremony for the staff. The first time I did that, they cried and said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, because it's who her people are, it's who we are. We're thanking you, we're saying Haishka for taking care of our relative. So it was important to teach the people around her who she is, how her people live, what her culture does, what it means for her. And I believe that that helped her be ready when she was called home to willingly go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think many things weren't shown. Many things were hard to see about her and her reality. And I think that's something the film really grapples with. I think you can see it in the drone photography, in sort of this constant checking on her that we're doing, on the sidelining of some of Squil-le-he-le's sort of needs and wants. I think it's a really important thing to track. The things people don't want you to see,
We can tell how much heart really was put into all of that. And thank you so much for sharing. And to the last question, sometimes we pour our hearts into something for years, as we see throughout this film, and it doesn't turn out the way we envisioned. What do you hope younger generations can take away from this journey?
Well, it's all people, younger and older, but we know our young people are going to carry out the work. I'm in the winter of my life, so the younger people need to step forward to carry out and finish the work. So what they need to know is there's hope. We are responsible, as handed down to us from our ancestors, to take care of Mother Earth. She's sick. We need to heal her. As part of Mother Earth, that encompasses the water, the air, the land, our finned relatives, our winged relatives, our two-legged and our four-legged. It is our obligation to heal and provide for them. And our young people can do that. We need to provide that love and support for them to move forward with the important work.
Yeah, I think it's important to see people trying and things not working out sometimes. I do. I think that we have many battles to fight in this time. And I think seeing someone as strong as Squil-le-he-le following through on her work, on her obligation, on her, to follow her heart is a powerful message that we should all follow suit and do what needs to be done to make the world around us a better place, even if it's just within your community, even if you don't have Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut or Orca near you, there is something near all of us that needs doing.
Yeah. I'd like to add to that. I think the example that the Lak'tamish people showed the world was one tribe, one family can make a difference and change the future. And I believe we did.
Well, I think you absolutely did. And I will also say that's just such a strong reminder that we really are all connected. It's beautiful and emotional and
and joyful to see that connection, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest moments of joy in the film when you actually get to see. I know that Squil-le-he-le experienced it in real life many times, but when you actually get to see Squil-le-he-le and the others meet with Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut and sing to her, and you feel the joy of her.
You do. Thank you for this conversation. It's been so amazing to have both of you.
Thank you, Quinn.
Haishka, I'm just so glad that this is going to the children. Haishka for that.
Chimigwich to all those who tuned in today. You can find more episodes of our DWF Live on our YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay connected with future DWF Lives.